Hey, what's up, everybody? How's everybody doing today? So if you guys are in the comments here with me, I was kind of asking where's everybody at today. I'm in Miami. I'm in my office, obviously here. I'm gonna try a couple of things new tonight. First off, I want to apologize. Austin, about 30 minutes ago, got into an issue with his car. So if you guys could send, prayers and wishes his way, make sure that everything's gonna be okay. I would appreciate that. You put that in the comments. We can see it later. But tonight's topic is about drinking in general, right? And the verbiage I used a little bit here was to drinking with colleagues. And the reason I did this conversation was because I've been seeing a lot lately this kind of two-sided conversation going on the web, right? Which now is being called kind of the metaverse is happening, where I'm seeing these two conversations, and I want to hear from the community out there what you guys think about drinking at work. So for you guys who travel, or for you guys who are on job sites, if you are essentially a social drinker, right, and you drink after hours or whatever it is, what are some common rules that you guys have that you maybe apply to things? What are things you see that maybe are no-goes when you're on show site? And what are things you see that are acceptable norms that are going on? I'm going to try a couple of things tonight a little bit differently. Obviously, I encourage everybody who's watching me to come join me in the talk tonight, come be a part of this conversation. I always try to bring you guys and engage with the community, not just myself. So either comment in the chat in the comments, or just come in and pop in there. I shared a link with you guys for the StreamYard to join me here. But anyways, I'll dive right into this, right? Because I kind of went to some key points here. If you guys read the event page, we talked about, the first thing was rule one is do go. And what I mean by that is, if the client is inviting you to go out to drink, if your colleagues are inviting you to go out to drink, I highly recommend you go out, because these are the perfect opportunities to really engage with everybody, to really kind of talk and get together. They're really good opportunities, but then there's that point where you go too far, right? And Hafiz here is kind of talking about that right off the bat. Hafiz says, if you know you are drunk, then if you know you are drunk, then don't drink with the client. Plain and simple, right? And it's the truth. If you're that person who kind of gets too far into this, into that realm, you might want to avoid drinking. But what are some safer ways to think about it, right? So I myself am a social drinker. I usually do about, I'm more of a wine slash rum and coke type of guy. But for example, tonight I'm drinking mead. One a night, I'm pretty good to go. When I'm out in social settings, I drink about 2 or 3, because I sort of drink socially, and I do a little nightcap here and there. 1 to 2 doesn't affect me too bad. Get to that third one, I start to feel a little bit, and then anything past that, I feel like I'm a little out of my comfort zone. And not that this is wrong or right, but I just think that the opportunity to go out and to kind of unwind a little bit, and after a hard day you've been at, is good. So Hafiz says as well, and I'll backtrack. 2 drink maximum. I think that's a safe rule, right? If you're someone who drinks a lot, maybe you need some of these rules for yourself, right? I think these are kind of like your own self guidelines. Obviously, you don't want to get too drunk, because then you won't perform as well the next day, and the client will remember you as that drunk, which is not a good form either. But also to go out on the flip side to that, right? Because I try to always say both sides, positives and negatives here. On the flip side to that, if you are just going to socialize, to go to connect with people, to engage in a deeper level, to create that friendship. So you're not just colleagues who kind of work together. You are also friends outside the work environment, which I think is very important when we do all these events, because there is a lot of times where it is very stressful. It is a lot going on. And I think if you know a little bit more about the people you're working with, you're able to be more compassionate, more responsive, a little more helpful. Vice versa as well. If they know your story, what you're doing and what's going on in your life, they're a little more respect as well, to be a little more lenient with a couple things. I'll keep going. Sir. Albert says here, some of these W-2 based freelancing services forbid socializing with clients. It is in their rules. So Albert, you bring up a good point. If you are in the labor position, right, and maybe you're not working directly with a client or directly with the person, this is a gray area, right? So you're being told you can't do this, but if the client's asking you directly to go out, I would say for me, and if you guys want to jump in here. I'll share the link again, or if you guys want to keep commenting, you're more than welcome. For me, I think it's a missed opportunity. And again, and I'm not talking about just on the client end. I'm also talking about socializing with your coworkers and your colleagues. So if you're, let's say, like for my position as a video engineer, if the audio engineer and the lighting engineer want to go out afterwards, essentially, I would love to go out and socialize with these guys, get to know them a little bit better. I think that the collaboration works better when you are a little more familiar with each other, versus I just work with you here and X, Y, Z. I also think too, if you're that guy that doesn't ever go out, right? You only go to the job site, you only do your one job. No matter how good you are, there's still that kind of like, he's not really social. Like, let him do his thing, no big deal. There's this distance, right? This disconnect. I feel that happens. That if you kind of socialize a little more, sometimes that's acceptable because there could be something going on, and other times it's just like, that's just how he is, like whatever. What happens to that person is that they're not always top of mind, right? And not that that's not something wrong to think, but they're not always top of mind because like, when I think about a lot of clients that I work with a tight knit group of clients that kind of keep me with my freelancing coworkers, right? And not to say that I see the same guys over and over again, but when I travel and I fly and stuff, they know that Omar's going to be an enjoy to be with. He's not going to just be like, we fly him out, he does his job, and he goes to his hotel and disappears the rest of the time. Like, he's going to be sociable, he's going to hang out, he's going to be good with the client, good with the guys, that kind of environment. But again, Albert, I'd love to hear your rebuttal to that if you have one, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I do think it's a gray area. But I do think it's a missed opportunity if you don't. But back to what Hafiz is saying, if you do go out and you're a drunk, then you're probably losing by doing that. So maybe it is better if you're that guy that doesn't go out for those reasons. And again, there's a socialist part to this that I think sometimes you've had a stressful day and you just you want that a moment to unwind and relax and kind of vent a little bit to your colleagues. Those are the perfect opportunities, especially when you're working with a mixed team between female and males, between higher ups, the CEOs. I think those are really good times to kind of break some of those barriers to just become more human, right? More of just like, you're not just an employee doing a job, or you're not just someone they hired to do a job. You're humanizing yourself a little bit, becoming more of a person, right? You're not just an asset or a liability. Again, of course, if you go too far with that, that's the thing. If you are that type of person, maybe Hafiz's point is right. 2 drink maximum. I definitely think that's a good one. Mine's is 3. I have a 3 maximum, but I'm also a social drinker at home and with friends. So 1 is kind of like my starting point, regardless. I see another one here is from Hafiz. Try to be less drunk than the client, just in case you may need to get them back to their room safe. That's a very good one. So being conscious of what you're doing, being cautious of that kind of mentality of what you're getting involved with, not only for the moment, the night up, but the next day too. What I think is the worst part that happens sometimes is we get too excited, it becomes a party, right? Instead of a socialization, kind of getting to know each other event, it becomes this kind of after party, and you just go too far with it, and then it reflects the next day in your work performance because you're a little hungover, you're a little tired, you miss a cue like that. Again, if you are familiar with these people, there's a little leeway, right? We went a little too far. He's hurting, man. Like, let's help him out here a little bit. If you're the guy that disappears, though, and you came back drunk because you hung out with somebody else or whatever the case is, then it's like, dude, what were you doing last night? Like, this is your job. Why are you so irresponsible? I know that sounds harsh, but I do think on the back end that's kind of what happens. And again, if you guys disagree with me, let me know. So another one we got going here is, again, from Hafiz. Let me pull up here. I used to have to pick the owner of TAVS when he was out drinking with clients. I would not let them drive. And I'm sure, in my opinion, right, Hafiz, and again, tell me if I'm right or wrong, I'm sure that was one of the reasons they probably called you, right? Because they knew that you were reliable. They knew that they could take you out to socialize with clients. They knew they can go above and beyond, and they can really get things going. I would also add to that on the other side to that, on the upper echelon, right, that project managers, TDs, technical directors, a lot of the times, part of their job is to do that socializing with the client, to get them out there, to get them a little drunk, make them have a good time. Because one of the things we forget a lot of times, and Tyler has kind of reiterated this in my ear a couple of times, is one of the greatest things about what we do, obviously besides the cool things we do with technology and the cool tools we get to play with, is that we are creating an experience for people that are there, right? People are flying from all over the U.S. or all over the world essentially to come to our conferences sometimes, and sometimes they're coming to that location to be able to go out after the conference and have a good time. So it's a little tricky there too as well, because you got to be careful where you go and who's there and who's watching. But again, if you're mindful of what you're doing, if you are a sociable drinker, not a party drinker, I think that's to your advantage, because then you get to kind of experience with the client, get to kind of experience with the community, with the crew, and really get to engage with what's going on outside of just the ballroom. And remember, the people that are there to go to these events, part of this is for training for XYZ reason, or educational for XYZ, or medical conference for XYZ. But in addition to that, right, they're also going there because this is maybe the one trip they get to do a year outside of their family vacation, where they get to hang out with their friends. One of the things I want to bring up real quick here before we keep going down the comments is that what we tend to forget sometimes, right, and maybe not even forget, but now that we're in this whole streaming world, right, the Harvard world, there are people, and I'm sure you guys can attest to this, who are traveling now and getting back into the work environment. There are people that work all year round remotely with each other because they're in the Orlando office, and the other person works at the Vegas office, but they have to communicate every day on a constant basis. That might be that one time a year they get to actually hang out in person, and they definitely want to go out and hang out and drink and eat and have a good time, because it's like, hey, I work with you all the time. I know you. I know your family. I know your emotions, your feelings. I know all this stuff about you, but I only see you once a year, and that event now becomes more than just this company event. Becomes now a chance to meet your other half of the workforce, of the other colleague you need to do things. Um, so I think that's something we need to remember as far as when it comes to what we do as an event, and where drinking kind of falls into that line, right? Because there is a point where it is social, and it is you going out to your colleagues and socializing, and then there's a point where it's getting too far and it's affecting your judgment in your job. So I'll keep going here as well. Hafiz, yeah, I was that guy. So in reference to what we said a little bit earlier about him, going out with the client, maybe that was part of the client's initiative, right? Hey, I get to go out, drink with the client, drink with my client, get them to really, have a good time, have a good experience, really enjoy the city, and I think it's a good spots, because I know Hafiz here is going to take care of me and make sure I get back to. So I'm going to look good because I came back, I'm here, I'm present because my team's good on me, and my client's having a great time, and they're also more willing to take some of that blame for some things when things go wrong, because they went out with you, right? They went out drinking, they had a good time, they had a great time, and that's kind of part of the game that we play when it comes to that client, end client to client relationship. And Hafiz is playing that role where he's that guy. Hey, I want to bring him out. He's going to do his job, and he's going to go out with us because he's sociable, and he's going to help me get back on job and look good. Another one here, Hafiz is saying is, and I see some of these other ones coming in here. Try not to talk about what happens when you was out the next day. That's a good one. So to that point, I would say, yeah, be cautious, right? You can tell stories, family stories. You can tell some war stories. Sometimes these stories get a little bit too intimate, too deep, right? You want to be careful with what is being said, obviously, because that it reflects on you. There should always be, at least, right, this perception of you at work, right, that you are XYZ proficient of a professional, and then there's this, but who are you really, person, and that's kind of where that boundary is breaking a little bit. But you want to be careful, because some stories that get told change people's perspectives of you. And I know I've had that myself in a lot of different scenarios. I talk about the military here a lot of times, but there's other things that I don't talk about that I've experienced that, may be looked at differently because of my experiences. But again, it's a learning experience, and you kind of get to learn those between people, right? You get to really figure out who's at what level and who does what. So, and I'll keep going down here. Oh, so we got Fernando's here. He's out of Tampa. Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of Tampa. Clem's out there as well. Clem's got a great thing going on with the video production work group. Fernando, excellent advice. Thank you for that. Fernando, as well, as if you have anything you want to throw in there, please, I'd love to read it to the community and get them to hear that. Or if you want to join me live here as well, you're welcome to jump on here. Alberto here saying, on the other hand, another label agency that I've worked with used to throw coffee parties with beer and wine. Yeah, so, and again, I think to Alberto's point here, right, the coffee's great. If you go to DR, they had, instead of sugar, they do chocolate, so it's like a mocha constantly. It's probably my favorite thing about DR. But they had that similar concept, right? It was coffees all night, drinks all night, beer and wine. But again, it was in a social environment. And I think what I'll clarify here is what I'm talking about is there's the company throwing a social hour, happy hour kind of event in the hotel for everybody to kind of get socializing and have that fun. Same thing we're talking about here. And then there's what I'm really guiding you guys towards is that, hey, I'm leaving the property with my team to go drink here because I want to create a team building opportunity. And that is a very, like I'm saying, tricky point where Hafiz is saying, maybe if you're that guy, maybe choose your limit. If you want to go to three is my limit. To me, that's when I start to really get that edge. And I will say at the beginning, I'm in my mid 30s now. Drinking was like the confidence I needed, and I used to not be as social as I am now. It was that boost I needed to be confident, to be sociable. And if you know me from working with me, when I'm on job site, I'm very focused. I kind of get tunnel vision a little bit, so I don't always socialize too much. I kind of say, hey, yeah, it's good to see you, and I get back to work because I'm here to work, right? So I get to that mindset. But when I go out with the guys, I open up. I'm more me. I'm socializing. I'm talking. I want to hear your stories. I want to talk to you. I want to get ideas. I want to socialize about, whatever your passions are, and really just figure out how we can dive more into that and see like what drives you, what makes you tick. Like those things I kind of really love. You know, for AV when I'm working, I love signal flow. I love the process. I love how to get from point A to point B. When I'm talking to people, I love to hear your guys' stories. You know, what makes you drive, what you got in the industry. You know, how'd you get here, things like that. And it doesn't always have to be about work, but that's kind of where I'm going with that. So Ed Wallock here who is an interesting one. I don't drink, so when I go out with clients, I don't worry about embarrassing myself. And I like the words there, right? Embarrassing myself is the key thing he left off with. So Ed doesn't drink, which I think is fantastic. And I will say, in addition to that, something that I've been working on myself is there is no benefit to drinking. Zero. There is no health benefits. There's no medical benefits. There's no psychological benefits. It's all a stimulant that is technically toxic for you. And if anything, if you look at, you know, if you want to have the conversation about drugs, weed versus drinking, you know, look at side effects of drinking versus weed stuff, right? How is it that a drug that a drink that can make you feel tired, exhausted, can make you have rage, anger, can change your emotions, chemically change your emotions, can make you drowsy, can make you, you know, have accidents from driving, is legal, but something like weed that is, you know, that is known to have very little side effects, except for maybe sleepiness, is not illegal. And that's a whole different conversation. We won't jump into that too much, but I just want to give you guys out there is no benefit to drinking at all. There is none. It is a very sociable thing. If you are a heavy drinker, the hardest part about stopping or changing that is that your environment revolves around that, right? So your thing could be, oh, I want to hang out with my boys. I want to go out to drink. Boom, right? I want to hang with my boys. I want to go to the drink. Versus, I want to hang with the guys. Let's go to the gym together. Or I want to go to the guys. Let's go to let's go kayaking. It's a different crowd and different mentality of how you do things. So, again, how you manage that stuff is all on you. But the main point is you know, when it comes to drinking, being responsible about it up to a point. But I think to Ed's point here, since he doesn't drink, he's able to go out, have a good time, and probably if someone gets a little too far, Ed's got this thing. Well, that guy goes too far, or this guy to this. And if you know, the caveat is that Ed remembers now because he's not getting drunk. So he's like, oh yeah, you remember that one night you did blah 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 blah. Yeah, man, you might want to watch out for that. And that could be that thing where Ed is your boss on the next show, because the one thing about what we do in our industry with freelancing is you may be in a position of authority one day and a lead position for a tech position the next day. That changes all the time between the clients' needs and wants. And a lot of these guys can step up to the plate and do what they got to do. So something to think about as well when you guys are out there is those moments where, well, I want to social with these guys. I want to have a good time with these guys, but I don't want to go too far because I don't want Ed to think, you know, oh, this guy's a drunkard. Like, and then now we did a good show, or we did a prep day, was good, got drunk, and then a show day he wasn't good. Like, okay, that I can't call that guy for my show. Or if I do a show with this guy, like, okay, maybe we don't go out that night with him because he's gonna go too far with it. So things to think about, especially. And I related to my initial saying to that is that in our industry, there are shows where one day I may be the lead, one day I may be in the lead, as in for the crew, right? Technical director, PM, or I just may be the video engineer guy, and that changes. So that those social moments, which are also meant to gauge and gather teamwork and collab and networking, can also be the reverse of that, where it's like, okay, gone too far. Fernando, thanks my brother all as well. Man, I'm glad to hear you're doing so well, man. I'm really glad to hear that, man. I know you've gotten some stuff in the last year. So Ed here's got a follow up to this. I always feel weird when colleagues are offered a drink when still working and accept. That's a good one. So I wasn't even talking about that, but that's been brought up now. I always feel weird. I'll read it again, right? I always feel weird when colleagues are offered a drink when still working and accept. Again, I can see two sides to this, right? If you're on a job site and the client or your lead is offering you this drink, I can see where you were, hey, he's offering it to me. Like, I don't want to be awkward about it. Take the drink. I can see the other side of that to where, hey, this doesn't look appropriate, right? You're drinking on the job, not an appropriate scenario. Maybe in the office where you and this person have a rapport, and you guys are in a kind of environment where you all know each other. There's some kind of build up there. That may be a different story. But if you're in a crew, whether it's new or a year old, and you haven't built that camaraderie yet, it's a tricky situation, right? But again, play that by ear. But I agree with that. So I'll keep reading on. Sorry, because I could be missing something, right? I had that happen the other night while loading out, and a few guys stopped work and had some beers. That right there would be a no-go, right? So somebody offered you beers, and then you stopped working to take the beers when there's still work to be done. right? So that looks bad already. And it's what I was talking about a little earlier, right? Where Ed could be on the crew with you as a position of um, as a position for A1, if A1 or V1, and then the next show he could be the PM or the director on that show. And now he's like, well, these couple guys here, XYZ, had beers, and they weren't even the show crew. They were back for a 5-hour mini to strike. Okay, so now we're getting into this whole other scenario where these guys weren't even part of the crew. They didn't put in the effort you guys did. They were kind of in and out, and they did a double. And here's another thing I'll add to that Ed, just to iterate that. If you're a stagehand coming to a show or an engineer for a breakout room, don't come in drunk or smelling drunk. That is a big no-go, I think, across the board. I think everybody can agree to that. Just don't do it. That is a really big kind of instant turn off for a lot of people because it's just not professional, right? And we're in a business where we have to be the professionals constantly. We have to embody this this persona of professionalism because we are dealing with Fortune 500 companies all the time. We're dealing with medical professionals who spent 6 years getting a degree or who spent 10 years to get this position. You guys are coming in with tons of experience and hands-on, but we're not doing that route, right? We're doing a route where we are being thrown to the fire daily on every show we're doing, and we're doing it where there is no mistakes that be made because once a mistake is made, you've missed it, and there's no going back because it's all live. So it's real quick to get that guy and say, you know what, he's not ready for this industry. He's still playing around too much. He's not taking it serious enough. That gets weeded out very quickly, or you just don't move up in position because of those habits you have, right? So if you're thinking about it right now and you think you're maybe one of those guys, those habits may be keeping you from going up positions with the people you work with or the crowd you're around. So something to think about there as well. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Those are perceptions that I'm saying that I see a lot of times in my career in this and the business that I've been in. Those are conversations that get had, behind closed doors sometimes that are uncomfortable to have, but sometimes you have to have them. Another from Hafiz here. Sorry. If you're a big flirt or love to tell off-color jokes, it's not advised to drink more than 2. So this one gets interesting here, right? So if you're a big flirt, right? So and I'll use myself as example as a Latin man, right? I can be a little flirty sometimes with my persona and the verbiage that I use because of my culture. Now, do I get worse when I drink? I would hope not. I haven't been told that. Off-color jokes, that's a good one to be cautious of. Obviously, if you are traveling with a team, for example, I traveled with Tariq from TKO for about 6 months to a year. We traveled all over the U.S. with a team. It was 8 of us that traveled in a team, only 2 white guys, me being one of those white guys. I was Latin though. There are some people that we met that had some off-color remarks. And it was always awkward because this is a team that we built that has never had this issue. And then we brought in this other person and it was like, okay, man, you're being a little weird now. Like none of us have had these thought processes. And now you're bringing this in that was never an issue. Like no one noticed these things, we were a team, we worked together, we did our thing. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, but it's humorous because, it's obvious, but it didn't matter before until you made it obvious, one of those scenarios. Something to think about, guys, when you're working with anybody in general, right? Different races, different genders, different people of different colors, myself included. As a Latin guy, I like to play, and I look white, right? You can all think I look white, I sound white. I play that card all the time, especially around Latin people until la porqueria, starts happening. Then I kick into the Spanish, and they're like, oh, and it's like, yeah, okay, stop with the bullshit. Let's get to work. Let's be serious. But I'll play the white card until something happens where I need to pull out the Spanish card. So, and I'm born Latin. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. So I totally get where he's coming with that. Let's see. I'm going down here. Alex here says, I just can't stay up that late anymore and be fresh for the gig. Old guy problems. Listen, Alex, I agree with you. For me as well, there's a point where if I go with the client, here's where I kind of draw a line. If they're going out to drink and just drink, I usually don't go. If we're going to go eat and there's drinks there, I'm usually there because for me, it's like once the food's done, I can get out of there. Because I myself like to try to go to bed at a decent time because I'm constantly on the move, constantly running things. So I still want to go to bed because I want to be fresh for the morning, right? And for me, 3 drinks is it going to make me tired? Is it going to make me dehydrated? Is it going to give me a headache? It's going to make me just in a nice, comfortable zone and to go to sleep. And worst case scenario, right, I may go with a slight headache or a little dehydrated, but not enough to where it impairs my judgment for my job and what I'm doing. Because again, the most important thing about us, as far as whether we're in a breakout or GS, as an audio video lighting technician or engineer, is to take that cue at that moment. Because once the moment is gone, it's gone. So that is a really big thing we have to worry about. And I think getting to that point where you're impaired and you're missing it, and maybe the other one notices it, right? The team usually kind of, we'll work with you to make it as seamless as possible. But if you're constantly missing it because you got hung over the night before, it doesn't look good for you or the team. And essentially you become that weak link and everybody's trying to help you and fix you. Then it becomes a problem when it's like, hey, come on, dude. If you're coming in and you're missing a few things here and there, but you're constant, you're aware, maybe you got a lot of positions going on. Right now with everything coming back, there's still like that kind of Swiss Army knife going on where you're doing a little bit of everything. You're doing a little bit of the cameras, a little bit of switching, a little bit of the streaming. You get your hands in multiple positions. It's a little more acceptable there. But to miss it because you went out drinking the night before, or you went out and you didn't come back, and that's the other thing too. Like, we can go into that real quick. And if anyone wants to comment on that, we can dive into that. But I'll mention real quick doing the all-nighters, right? Which goes back to Alex's point. I can't stay up late anymore and be fresh for the gig. Doing those I was out to 2 or 3 in the morning drinking with the boys, and then we came at 6 o'clock call. That sounds cool when we're young, but when we get older, that kind of sounds like, okay, that's not responsible. Can we get this, get this in motion here? So anyways, hey guys, listen, real quick, I want to take a break here. We are at the 30-minute mark. I'm going to drop the link here again. If anyone wants to join me here, drop the link here. If you guys are weren't aware, you came in a little bit after the fact, Austin Jackson was going to join us tonight. He had a little bit of an issue with his vehicle. You guys want to just send prayers and wishes his way to make sure everything's okay. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. See it in the comments here. He couldn't join us because of that, so he's taking care of that. I told him, do what you got to do tonight, man. Take care of yourself. Do not worry about this. I'll handle it and we'll get it going. But again, we're always looking for you guys to guide the conversation, to really push us forward. And we take all your comments here, or you can come live with us and you can rebuttal or debate me, whatever you like to do. This is a free forum for you guys to talk about and to kind of bring up things that I see going on within the live event side and the social media side. And again, just to reiterate, we're talking about the kind of do's and don'ts for drinking at the work environment, outside of the work environment. And we're talking about some of the explaining or emphasizing some of the things that we've experienced in our industry. And my goal here is to be the devil's advocate, essentially give you the pros and cons of both things from my perspective. You guys' goal is to guide this conversation and tell me your perspective. And if I'm wrong, just let me know. And we could talk about it either through the chats or live with me here. So again, I'll get back on track here real quick. Here's one from Hafiz. If you don't normally drink, then don't drink. You can accept a drink, but don't drink it. I have a buddy. And I read that I have a buddy who he likes to milk. I think that's what they call it. You're milking the drink. You just hold on to it all night. He's a rum and coke type of guy. He got the drink. He'll all night he'll drink because he's not a real big drinker. He does it to be social with the crew and with everything that's going on, and just so they don't bug him about it, right? So him getting bugged about, hey, you're babying it. He's not worried about that. But him getting bugged to drink and all that, he's not about it. And what he's found in his reference when we talked about this was that for him, getting the one drink, yeah, you get the hey, you're milking it, you're taking too long. You get that, but you don't get the hey, get the next one constantly, right? And that's the problem when you start drinking. And you drink and your glass is empty. Oh, another round. You might not want another round, but the team's excited, you're involved, you're having a good time. It happens sometimes. So he feels for him babying it. It lets the staff know, hey, I'm still on this one. Don't give me another round. It lets the team know, hey, I'm still on this one. Don't give me another round. And also it breaks that barrier of, oh, he's not drinking with us. What's going on here? But yeah, so Hafiz, good advice here. I got another review from Hafiz. Sorry. It's hard to talk for an hour and not take breaks here. But anyways, so, oh yeah, and smoking weed can be awkward too. So this is this interesting one. I'm kind of a big no-go when it comes to this, particularly because if you come smelling like weed, it's an instant turn off for everybody, including the end client, which is your biggest competitor. If you drink, right, and you go to sleep and you wake up, you take a shower, hopefully, right? You take a shower, you come back in the ballroom, probably not gonna smell like anything. You'll be all right. If you smoke weed, and the reason I say this is because a lot of the guys, including smokers in general, they will leave on breaks or in between to go smoke something. That just leaves kind of a bad taste in people's mouth when you come back, or in their minds. Let's say that in your minds, it leaves a bad taste because now it's like, oh, this guy took a break and he went out here and we did XYZ in between that, but he had to have his cigarette break or he had to have his weed break, and now he's not doing. Not to say that you're not you don't you can do these things and be functional, because that is a thing. Just be cautious and mindful about it. Be respectful about it. No one needs to know your business. Definitely no one needs to know your business, right? Don't be going, spreading, hey, you want to come join? You want to come join? You want to do this? No, unless you're friends with that person personally and they're okay with that stuff and they want to, take that leap of faith with you, by all means, do your thing. Be cautious of what I just said, though, right? Those are things that are real conversations in the industry that happen. I've also had to kick off people from shows when I'm in a lead position, when they come back from a break smelling like weed. I've had either the PM or the director, hey, I need that guy gone. Like, he can't be here anymore. And it's a hard conversation to have, but at the same token, it's like, hey, that's kind of one of the things where you risk it because of your actions, and it should be a clear thing, right? Don't, especially when you're working with these companies, these corporate 500 companies or these pharma companies or whatever is going on. Don't try to beat the man, because the man's just going to kick you off the show and you're not going to get paid. Like, that's the simple solution here, right? So Hafiz got one here. Let's go to the strip club. So I don't have comments to say about this because I'm not that guy. I will always say no. I don't see the point in it. My personal opinion, you guys can take this or not as advice. It's a waste of your money, waste of your time, and it's not benefiting anybody. There is zero benefit to doing that other than your own ego, and it's feeding you a false sense of confidence for things that are not real. So don't put yourself in a situation, and don't waste your money in that situation. There are times too where if you combine, let's say, drinking, weed, and that environment, they're there to make money just like you are, or you're there to have a good time. They're there to make money, and they'll do whatever they can to keep milking that cow. And I've seen shows, or I've been on shows where I've seen guys that they'll come back from one night and they're like, yo, that they cleared out my account because you got a little too drunk and you got a little too far, and they took advantage of that. And you know what? That's part of what they're doing there, because they gotta make a living, and you just kept swiping the card, and at the end of the night, nothing happens. So again, your call, how you live your life. That's my 2 cents on that part. I don't really have a positive for that. I don't see it. I don't have a positive. If you guys have a positive in the comments, go ahead and drop it there. I don't see one to that. That's kind of my stance on that. I don't see one at all to that. I do think it's not a disgusting profession. I think it's a profession that needs to be had. I think men have personas and things about themselves, and it fills a niche for the community. But I don't think it's worth it as for you, because it is a false sense of a lot of things that I just won't get into. But I would always say no to those things. That's me. So again, if you guys want to talk about that, let's go to the strip club. Let me know in the chats here if you agree or disagree with that, or if maybe I'm wrong about something and you see a positive for it. And again, it's talking about the tech side, not the dancer side or anything like that, but the tech side. What would be the positives if that was that environment for you, right? The only thing I will say to try to be on the plus side is that because men have egos and men have needs and urges, that could be a potential clienting kind of environment. And I've seen that scenario once in a while, especially down in Miami, because this is a Latin community. Not my go-to, not my thing. I usually don't go, but I have heard and seen. So there, again, that's up to you guys, your discretion. So again, I'm going to jump into the next one here. So Ed says, I've had a few late night calls followed by early calls the next day recently. And after a few days of that, it gets hard to keep at the top of my game. Agree. So late night, early mornings, that usually is, hey, this is good. It's going good. Compound that by days and weeks or months, even of that same kind of repetition where you're up all night, up early morning. I'm experiencing that myself the last couple of days. If you guys hear my voice is slipping a little bit, my tongue is not as, is a little weak, right, in the way I pronunciate things. I'm in the same boat where the last 2 weeks has been like that, especially when you're traveling a lot, right? So you think about traveling from different time zones. You're going from East Coast to West Coast or West Coast to East Coast, and then flying back and forth and doing that over and over again. Having to constantly readjust your body on those time zones, so that you're going from a 3-hour difference to now you got to be a 3 hours negative difference or 3 hours plus difference. Sometimes when you're doing that can be very, very hard, especially if you're doing quick turnarounds, right? 3 days on a show, 2 days over here. Sorry, something I ate. It's not been sitting well with me. 2 days over here, 3 days over here. That can be a very, very tricky situation. I just turned on a job that was an overnighter, set an evening show the next day because I would have been working for about 48 hours straight. The money isn't worth it. That's a very good thing. So Ed and me, I would like to say, can agree to this. Ed and me talk a lot behind the scenes, obviously, because we do a lot of things together. But don't chase the money. It's plain and simple. Do not chase the money. It's never going to get you where you think it's going to go. Chasing the money is the worst thing I think you can do in this career. Stay loyal and be respectful to your clients, to their time and their scheduling of your time. Don't try to double book yourself in one day. Don't try to do shows where hey, I'm flying out to here, I'll fly to here. I can maybe get there on time, because if you fail or you come tired, you're just letting the client down, which doesn't look good for you. It doesn't help them out. Do not chase the money. Usually when chasing the money comes involved, maybe if you're young, that's your mentality, you want to chase the money, go for it. You're a really good planner, organizer of your time, maybe go for it. I could talk about some scenario that Ed's talking about here, where I did 3 days back to back of a kind of daytime shows, and then I had 4 days back to back of nighttime shows, and that initial 2 days luckily were setup days. The first day was a real struggle, and then I crashed out. The second day was a real struggle. What helps me out for those type of scenarios, especially when I'm traveling, I'm not a big coffee drinker. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I'm not a big tea drinker. So when I am getting tired, when I do take coffee or tea, those things actually, they get me going. So a lot of times I'm able to use that as my kind of booster to get past that little hump a little bit. But then it's usually a hard crash for the day, and I try to even that out. But I never try to do like, yeah, I end this show in the daytime, and then I start another show at nighttime, back to back like that. No, but the next day or something like that, following that, I may push it a little bit, because I know that I can cheat with getting some tea or coffee. I'll keep going down the line here. So another one we got here was from Hafiz. Yeah, bring cologne, mint. Yeah, bring cologne, mint, and air freshener. Even if you just smoke some, don't like it too. Yeah, so I agree with what Hafiz is saying here. I will add, and again, this is a Latin culture thing. I'm sure there's other cultures and races that do this, but do not have overpowering cologne smells. Could be a problem for people, and there's some people that have sensitivity to those things. My biggest thing is, if you do a show and you walk around the ballroom, or if you come to the ballroom and I can smell you coming before I even see you, and that's how I know you're there, that's not good. For me, that's a big no-no in the industry. I've also had scenarios where, especially in Florida, where there are some techs that have that they wear these heavy colognes or heavy smelling colognes, and they're coming before they get there, and it's like, hey, so I've had XYZ person complain that, you just have this overpowering smell and it's hard to work next to you. So I need to put you somewhere else. And that becomes an extra step for me to have to, figure out and negotiate like who's and what. And then getting that feedback sometimes is like, I got to stop what I'm doing to deal with this, which shouldn't even be a conversation. And to me, that's, I get you want to smell good, you want to look good. And you have a certain persona you have about yourself. But be mindful of where you're at and the people you're with, because sometimes that is a thing that, they may not say it to you, but they're going to say it to the leads and say, hey, XYZ, can you help me out here? It's like, yeah, no problems. Let me go talk to them. And usually what ends up happening is, instead of me telling you exactly what's going on, I'll just be like, hey, can I get you in this position over here, XYZ? And it's usually like you and one other person who's been working with you who hasn't complained goes off, and I put you like in a 2-man team doing something. So if you think you're that guy, you're probably that guy where, hey, can you come here, help me out there? I need you and him to go and do XYZ over there. When you're done, come back to me. And usually that task takes it takes some time. But then they become the little team there. So I'll keep going down here, and we're at the 20-minute mark, and I'm going to introduce here Laura, who's going to come in here real quick. Boom.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, how you doing, Laura?
I'm so good. I figured I would help rescue you and save your voice a little bit.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So there'll be some times where you go full screen, and I'll be taking a drink out of this so that my voice can relax. But so if you guys don't know Laura, she's done a show with us in the past where she was talking about virtual production,
Virtual show calling. Good
virtual show calling. Yeah. So she has recently been moved up. So if you guys want to congratulate her, she's been moved up a position with her company. She's now like the boss lady. So she was the boss lady, but now she's the boss lady. And she's doing great things. So you guys definitely want to know who this person is. But Laura, so before I jump back in these comments, and I can stop talking for a second here because I'm rambling, I would love to hear your perception of that kind of drinking with colleagues. What is your ideas of that? What are your do's and don'ts off the top of your mind?
So I have been listening to you actually for the last half an hour while I was finishing up work things.
Thank you.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, actually. It's a lot of, you want to make sure, we actually try to do kind of plan this out when we do events with our group, or especially like going on site, because everyone's away, we're working so hard. We want that moment to kind of connect with the crew and be able to relax a little bit. So we actually tend to try to plan it out. That way nobody feels overwhelmed if they don't want to do it every day type thing. Most of us in my crew, we're just like, LOL, we're not doing this every day. So we're going to do this like this day and like be good. But it's honestly, it's a great bonding experience. I will definitely add, don't feel like you ever need to drink something alcoholic. There's definitely one of our techs that we use a lot. He never drinks, period. He's not an alcohol drinker. He orders lemonade and everyone knows it. And nobody gives him any, let me meter my words. Nobody gives him any flack to not say bad words. Or about it, because it's not about like what you're drinking. It's at the end of the day, it's about bonding and like taking your teamwork to the next level. And a lot of it has to do with maturity as well, because if you know you can't handle more than this, definitely don't do it. If you are if you know you're not going to be fresh for the next day, like it's not good for you. But it's also, I just want to point out, it can be dangerous too. It's not like we're necessarily always operating something like heavy or what have you, but some of the technology that we deal with is expensive and or heavy and or like complicated. And if you're not on your game and something happens, that's on you, like for not making sure that you're on top of it. And like that could spell all kinds of trouble financially, as well as just for your job later. So just don't do it. Just be careful with it. But absolutely do try to network with each other and have a great time and just have great conversations. I will say, I don't think I don't personally know anyone that's asked someone to go to the strip club, but like I will echo what you said. Just kind of take that with a grain of salt. If you're not comfortable in that kind of environment or any kind of environment that you're being asked to go to, just don't go, because you might also give off a different energy if you're not comfortable, and that just could lead to awkwardness later, because they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't invite him, and like maybe I shouldn't invite them ever, like things like that. So if you ever know that there's an outing being planned that you're not going to be comfortable 100% being there, just better not to go and go to the next thing, rather than just try to go to be social and then just like make awkwardness happen on accident.
Yeah, no, and I'll even jump on this. Hafiz has said a comment. Oh, I was on a gig. A client who invited us to the strip club and has no idea a couple on the crew was not into that. And he adds here, and the client was married. So like I already iterated, right, some of this where, hey, your crew will have a perception of you for doing this, for one, and two, there may be somebody, and I didn't even say that part, but there may be somebody on the crew who is in a situation where this isn't their vibe, right? So now that crew member may not say yes to a future show because like, I can't say yes to this guy because he always wants to go to strip clubs, and I'm married and my wife would kill me if I did that, or my partner would kill me if I did that, right? And then to Hafiz's point, now he views it as like, hey, you're married, you're gonna go to a strip club, like what's up with that, right? So now your crew has an impression of you, and vice versa. You have an impression of the crew has an impression of you, and you have an impression of the crew now, where they may or may not have been because you weren't that close to them. And again, devil's advocate, right? If that's your thing and you're reasonably responsible with your money about it, and somebody else on the crew that's their thing, those are offline conversations, right? That's that kind of gray area where it's being mindful of who you're with and who you're working with. And again, if you had done a kind of social event with your buddies to talk and drink, maybe you would have found out, hey, this guy's for that guy we don't ask, that girl's definitely not going to do that stuff, so don't even bother asking. That's kind of your moment where if you are maybe a little more on the risky side of things, you use that opportunity to build with the team to figure out what's okay and what's not okay, or at least attempt to be mindful of other people's opinions and thoughts and things like that. So, and I think Laura, everything you said too just reiterates what I said at the beginning here about there are rules and stuff. So, and I wanted to add, when you were saying this, if you are not a drinker, and Ed, if you're still here, I'd love to hear maybe some of maybe if you have any tricks to that, or if you just, I feel like Ed would just say like, that's not me, I'm not doing it. But if you are that guy who doesn't want to drink, or here's something that I do, I get a lot of rum and cokes. And if the guys are having a really good time after my third drink, I start just getting Coke, and no one's questioning it because they can't tell the difference.
That's
So
true.
that's something I do. Yeah. So if you're a rum and Coke type of guy, that could be your trick, which now everyone knows my trick now. But after my third drink, I just switch over to Coke and start drinking Coke and don't even put the rum in anymore. I just so hey, just Coke. But again, no one knows what's going on. No one's bothering me about it. I've gotten my three. I'm good to go, and I keep going about my day. So here's another one I got. Alex here saying Ed Wallach never understood intentionally burning your crew and still expecting their A game. I love this, right? Because this is something we talked about real quick, something we mentioned, and actually, we have a great point. There is that drinking to socialize, right? To a point to where you're just building a bonding with your team, getting to know them a little bit better, and the point where you're like, hey, let's go all out till 2, 3 in the morning, come back the next day, and then you're like, hey, why aren't you guys doing your jobs? Like, because you let them,
Exactly. It's one of those. I know that when my team goes out, we definitely have kind of like, we don't have a set bedtime, but we definitely at some point in the night we're just like, all right, half of us have 6 a.m. calls tomorrow, so it's about time to call it. And if some like individuals want to stay out a little bit longer, at that point it's just like, well, it's on you, but you need to make sure that like you're ready to go tomorrow for whatever call you have. Yeah, like as a group, we have decided that we are good. We have bonded. We are great. Like everything's driving, and it's time to go to bed. But like if you want to stay out, obviously we're all adults, and if you want to stay out and like have a little bit more fun, party, like I definitely did that once on a show site. We were actually visiting with one of our friends that lives over there. I stayed out longer. And I'm not really sure how I ended up going to my call because I got like maybe 2 hours of sleep. But you know what? I was like younger me, and younger me was able to pull that off. Me now could not. And I'm not like that old, but I just know that 2 hours of sleep is not going to cut it. And even if I were to be able to wake up, I'm not going to be in a good mood, and I have to be client facing for everything that I do. So that's not a good look on me. It's not a good look on my company. It's not a good look for my entire team, and it's not a good look for like my direct clients or the end client. It's not good. Period. So just be mindful.
You touched on something that I want to bring to his attention here because maybe I mentioned it and didn't. I don't know, I'm trying to find the right word here. So I want to say that I mentioned it. I hope I mentioned it, but I don't think I emphasized it enough. Is that the way you guys react, the way everybody reacts in these situations, right, is a reflection of the company that you're hiring or your company, not just yourself, but the people you're working for. And that is a big thing I want you to take away from tonight as well, is that all these things are great. They're great building opportunities. They're great things, but they can also be the complete opposite of that, right? I feel like we've done a pretty good job of getting to both of those. But I think the one point that I want to drive home before the end of the night, which we got 10 more minutes left, is that this is also a reflection of the company. So if I go out to drink, for example, I'm Omar Colom. I'm just a social level guy. But if I go out and someone records me puking my brains out and posts it, now it's not Omar. Now it's AV Educate. Like, oh, look at what he did. Like, oh, that guy went a little crazy, right? And you would have told me this a year ago. I'd be like, no one cares. Now it's like people know me through this, right? People know me through this platform. This is my brand. It's my company. I had to be cautious of these things, and not that it hinders me in any way because I am me regardless, and I represent myself. I would like to think well, but that is always at the top of my mind, right? If I'm working for somebody, I want to be at below whatever they're doing. Right. I want to be at their level for everything they need me for, but on the social side, below what they're getting to. And then on the flip side of that, I want to make sure that if I'm there with their client, that their client sees me well. And usually what ends up happening is I throw in some war stories and, I'm the good guy. And here's the other thing too. If you're awkward, like I get awkward sometimes. I would just throw out random stories and see what sticks, or I'll jump off of people's stories like, oh, I had something similar, or I did this. What I don't recommend you do though, and there are people that do this when they drink, don't be the one-upper guy. That is just a real big, like turn off in general. Is when you're like, oh, well, I did this show, or I did that, 10th that. What? Like, no one cares, man. No one cares. Did the show go good? Great. Don't one up it, because the client notices those things, and then they see it as, oh, this guy's always trying to one up. So then it becomes, I want to use it for this and that, but he's gonna try to one up everybody. Like that's his his mission or whatever. I say this because there was a show I did where there's a guy that the entire night was doing this. It was just like, really, dude. But it was part of his personality, and it reflected in some of the stuff he was doing the next day. You could just see, or it's like if you weren't at his current level of thinking, you were getting yelled. It was weird. Anyways, I don't want to dive into it. It's off topic, but
No, it's
I feel like
actually
you have something.
no, I was about to say, like, to be fair, like, real quick on that point, like, you really have to be careful with that because me as like a show producer and caller sometimes, like, if I have, and that comes down to if I have a choice between this person that I know is going to, like, at the end of the day, kind of like be annoying, like that is their personality, that they're always trying, they have something to say about every single thing, and I'm gonna want to like tell them to shut up 7,000 times on comms. I'm not going to be as inclined to call them for another show as somebody else that's going to be like a little bit more tempered with their responses. Like we are all passionate about what we do, and we should be. That is why we're here. Where we should be proud of the work that you do, but like there's a way to go about talking about the things, and like if your only mission is to like show that you're doing it better, or that you know somebody better, or that you've done a bigger show, nobody's going to want to talk to you. Like that's not the way to go about it. It's something that like you have to change your mentality, instead of being like, oh, I did that but better. Like, no, just form a kinship about it and be like, wow, I did something really similar. Like, maybe bring up something that you potentially had an issue with, and bring that person into the conversation and see like how what solution maybe did you have for this, and then like bounce each ideas off of each other, because like at the end of the day, if you did a show this big or that big, it doesn't super matter. You both worked.
Yep, my rate's the same no matter what.
Right.
So there's another one here. That Alex had said here. Sorry, I was trying to get ahead of you. So Alex had said, Happy says, I've made it way too many morning wake up calls to text, even had to call security a few times. No worse feeling covering for a tech while you're trying to find them. And it's always something that's remembered. So a couple of things, right? Something that is remembered, which is the key thing we're talking about here about going too far. Um, Having to have your client cover for you after you've had a night, immediately, like now no one else is going out because you guys aren't responsible, right? Even though it's just that one person, you guys aren't responsible. We're not doing this again, right? Here's your meal vouchers. Go get whatever you want. Be here on time. But then again, too, now Alex is in a position where he has to cover for you when that's not his job. He's got other things to do. He hired you to do a position, to do a job, to do it well, and now you're not reliable essentially. So now moving forward, you may not get that call unless, and maybe, and Alex, you tell me if I'm wrong, if there's someone you've worked with a lot and it's like, hey, it was a one-off thing, he's got something going on or blah blah blah. I'm coming for him and I understand what's going on. I'll work with you again. But that's part of that, building that relationship with these people, building that camaraderie is so that when these things happen, and hopefully they're flukes when they happen, you have that friendship to say, hey, I know you went through a divorce recently. I know you're on this stuff. I know you're great. You got separated. I know you did a car accident. I know your kid's sick. Whatever the case is, like they may be more inclined to cover for you. Be like, hey, I understand. If they don't know you and you're that guy who just didn't show up and had to call security on you, no, I'm not calling you back. I don't know who you are, and to me, you're just not reliable. Regardless of what's going on in your personal life, you're not reliable. And then Apisa said something here that interesting. I don't know if I've heard this, but the baptize of fire to test your crew is a reality for some old heads too. I don't know if I've been in that situation, and that's maybe why that happened. But again, my trick is the rum and coke trick. Get 3 rum and cokes. After the third one, switch to coke. No one knows the difference. Laura, you ever been in that scenario?
With this, no. In
Okay.
other work things, yeah, definitely. But I tend to be more, and Omar, I mean, you know this. No matter what is, whether it's a post work or pre work, during work, whatever it is, I always try to set my entire team up for success, no matter what it is. So I get like the mom vibes going in the group sometimes, and I'm just like, hey, are you good? Like, is everything good? Blah blah blah. Because I like to check on my team and make sure that they're okay. Baptism by fire, I've heard that term, just not necessarily in like the social post work thing, but I could see how that could be something that happens and is a challenge. But at the end of the day, if you are in a situation like that, you need to make sure that you rise to the occasion and rise above it. And again, just at the end of the day, it's all about uh, holding yourself accountable, know what your limits are, do whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that you are still on your A game the next day, period.
No, I like that a lot. And one thing I'll say too, Actually, I'll bring up Ed's first. So Ed had said here, which this is also an option for everybody. Definitely don't be shy of this scenario. I just got Sprite or water, or sometimes cranberry juice and a lime wedge. I can hang out and not drink and have no problem telling people I just don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
I totally respect that. I 100% respect that. I respect Ed as an individual. I totally respect that fact. And I would like to say that 95% of the people you work with are going to respect that and just be like, got it, no, and then move on. The other five, who really cares at that point, right? But Ed's been strong about this. He's very vocal about it. It's his person. That's who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he's like, if you don't like it, that's great. Move on. Like, just move on. But yeah. So we've told you guys some tricks, some things you can try to do, pros and cons to these scenarios. The last thing I want to say tonight, Laura, before I let you go, and have you say your kind of 2 cents here. What I want to say to everybody here is that, and this is kind of the tricky part of our industry. Okay, the way that I see a lot of things that we do is that no matter what position you're in, whether you're a stagehand, a tech, an engineer, elite positions, the PMs, no matter what it is, when you're on the event team, okay, on that side of the board from the main client, I think what needs to be spoken about a little bit is that you are in the business of hospitality. Whether you realize that or not, you are constantly in the business of hospitality to your colleagues, to your clients, and to their clients. And that is something that if you can think the way hospitality thinks, what I want to mention is real quick is that there is no formal education for what we do, right? There's no real, you go here, you get this degree, you move up, you get this college, and you move up here, XYZ. That's not that. It's more of trial by fire. It's more of hands-on experience. It's more of learning from each other, going to these manufacturer certifications, which is great. But I also want you to notice that a lot of these places we work at, venues, hotels, they're doing 4-year degrees of hospitality. That's how important that term is, and that whole scenario is. It's hospitality. And unfortunately, as cool as we think we are, as well as we get paid, as professional as we are at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to these events. We are at the very bottom. And if you guys can just accept that what we do is in the hospitality industry, and we need to act and think that way towards everything above us, I promise you'll see these doors open up that you didn't see before, because being in that kind of service mentality, right? How can I help you? How can I assist you? What can I do better? Not saying no directly, but maybe rewording it so it's like, hey, unless we get XYZ or unless we do this, that's not really possible at this time. Figuring out ways to explain maybe why you can't do something versus just saying no. That's all part of that hospitality thing. And that there is a 4-year course and there's certifications that need to happen in the hotel side and in that industry that's how important this is to really nail down. And that is being essentially of service to the clients, and they're expecting that. So when you come on board as the AV guy, they still think you're IT, one, and two, they think you're part of that whole branch of hospitality, and they're expecting it. And if you don't provide that, and you're the grumpy guy, you're the whatever dude that's just being a little out of there, you're the guy they remember, and to say, don't bring that guy back because he was rude to me, or he wasn't giving me what I needed, or he kept having, he kept giving me problems when I was trying to, he didn't give me, we need to be the solutionists for what's going forward. And I think that word is very powerful, right? The solutions of what we're doing. But I think also if you kind of guide yourself to thinking that we are hospitality, right? To our clients, from everybody from where we are to above us and below us. I just think your career would just shift in such a better way. Anyways, that's my final kind of thoughts here. Laura, before I let you go for the night, anything that I didn't talk about, didn't mention that you think we should touch on real quick?
Well, as always, you've actually touched on a lot of points that I think are all very valid. I love this last point that you just made, actually. Having gotten one of these hospitality type degrees myself, mine is in entertainment management, so it's a little bit newer, but it is it's something to think about. And I would say, even on the flip side, if you're in a leadership position like producer, like PM, like something more along my role, don't forget that we are hospitality for our clients, but also like this whole world of tech, like they're there to help you make the magic happen. You can't do it yourself. I promise you. So like make sure that you're always fostering an environment where people feel comfortable, where people want to work for you, where people are excited to work with you, that they like see your name and they want to do their best work because they know that you're going to take care of them and make sure that they're good to go, make sure they're set up for success. Like that takes a little bit more from us sometimes, but because you're splitting your hospitality basically two ways, where it's client facing and team facing. But like your team is also your personal client, really is how I see it. Because at the end of the day, like the client pays us, pays everyone, but like I can't do anything that I need to do for that client without this team. So just keep that in mind. And again, like with there's a social aspect to it and everything that should serve to just strengthen the bonds. It shouldn't act as a deterrent for anything. And if it's becoming a deterrent, then like do some soul searching and see what needs to change. It could be you, it could be the environment. There's a couple of different ways that it could go. Just make sure that like whatever you're doing it's in a positive light and always for the betterment and growth of yourself and the community.
I love it. I love it. So, Lada Massey, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. If you and me could just say together, we'll say goodbye to the to social media, right? So, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Peace, Ed, Fernando, Albert. I'm missing somebody, right? I think we're good. Those are the main contributors tonight, right? Thank you for watching with us tonight. Lada Massey, thank you so much for coming on with me and talking with me. Thank you for that last little bit of notes there. And again, guys, thank you. See you next weekend, and have a good night.
Bye.